It's not something that video games tend to actively encourage, and they're definitely not going to go out of their way to pat you on the back for it, but you can kill a bunch of NPCs in video games if you want to. Also, even though most games won't pat you on the back, as ever when it comes to video games, there are some notable exceptions. In the case of the next 10 games, each offer up an unexpected, generous, and perhaps even hilarious reward for daring to kill an NPC in cold blood, just because the occasion took your fancy. I'm Jess from WhatCulture, and here are 10 awesome rewards from killing NPCs. Number 10. Sacrifice Victims, Grand Theft Auto 5. In case you somehow didn't think that Grand Theft Auto 5's Trevor was morally bankrupt enough, you can make things a whole hell of a lot worse by having him kidnap and sell people to a cannibal cult. Because why the hell not? The Altruist Cult is a religious organization which will pay players for picking up random drifters, or as they call them, lost souls, and then bringing them to their secluded compound. Although you are not the direct cause of death in this case, it's made abundantly clear that the people you collect and traffic to the cult are indeed killed and eaten in short order. So yeah, you're pretty much killing them yourself. Each of the deliveries will earn the player $1,000 or $2, but here comes the rub. Collect enough victims and you'll end up in a shootout with the altruists themselves. Kill them all, and then you'll be able to hoover up the $100,000 in cash they've got sitting around their base. Not bad for a day's work, even if you had to get your hands very, very dirty for it. Number 9. Barry Burton, Resident Evil Remake. In the case of Resident Evil Remake, if you're willing to throw fan-favorite character Barry Burton to the wolves, you can make the end of the game a hell of a lot easier for yourself. When Jill and Barry are attacked by Lisa Trevor, Barry asks you to give him his immensely powerful .44 Magnum back, at which point you're given the choice to comply or refuse. If you refuse, you'll be forced to watch as Lisa makes short work of Barry, and you'll then have to take her on for yourself. But there is a wider advantage. You've now got the most potent weapon in the game, apart from the rocket launcher. More to the point, the Magnum makes the tyrant boss fight later on in the game easy to the point of trivial, as you can put it down with just a single shot. Sorry, Barry, but your life was worth the ability to cheese the final proper boss battle that the game has to offer. Who's a sandwich now, Barry? Number 8. Tank Rampage, Prototype. Cult classic action-adventure game Prototype has some wild trophies, which reward you for harnessing your inner madman and slaughtering as many innocent digital civilians as brutally as possible. And while the trophy for killing 53,596 infected, aptly called Trail of Corpses, devolves into a pure slog lasting many hours, there is another NPC killing trophy that's a good deal more fun. The Speed Bumps trophy requires you to hop into a tank and run over 500 NPCs. And that's it. That's all you gotta do. It'll take you all of about 10 minutes as you haul ass across town in a Death on Wheels mobile and mow down fleets of panicked humans who try in vain to escape your wrath. The only snag, if the tank gets blown up in that time or you get out of it, the death counter will reset. Considering how maniacally enjoyable this mission is though, you'll probably not be too bothered about having to start it again. Trophies may be standard fare as in-game rewards go these days, but not all games hand out digital plaudits for massacring the innocent. Number 7. The Guide, Terraria. In classic sandbox adventure game Terraria, the first NPC you encounter is the Guide, who spawns nearby and, true to his name, will acquaint you with all the gameplay basics. Hilariously though, if you decide to kill the Guide just for the hell of it, you'll receive a 4-minute buff of good luck, which increases the likelihood of tasty item drops, rare enemy encounters, the presence of specified NPCs, and better wares from the merchants. Basically, it makes life in Terraria that little bit sweeter. Yet there's no denying it, it's an odd reward for your needlessly violent act. Especially given that killing any other NPC in the game will net you negative luck for the same amount of time. Exactly why murdering the most helpful NPC in the game results in such a neat if fleeting buff is anybody's guess. Number 6. Jeremiah Compson, Red Dead Redemption 2. Rockstar Games strikes again, and this time with Red Dead Redemption 2's amusing pat on the back for taking out the human trash. In the Stranger mission, which if you played it, I bet you remember the antiquities of history, you'll meet Jeremiah Compson, a downtrodden man who you attempt to help by breaking into his home and reclaiming some of his possessions. Except once you're in the house, it becomes clear that Jeremiah was a proud former slave catcher, and once Arthur returns to Jeremiah, he burns most of his possessions in front of him. Jeremiah then makes a desperate attempt to shoot Arthur, but the gun jams, at which point players are given the choice: kill Jeremiah for his horrifying past, or leave him to his life of destitution. And if you decide to indulge your bloodlust and do away with Jeremiah, you'll actually receive an honor boost, which leads to better loot, cheaper goods, and NPCs engaging with you in a more affable way. Given that killing NPCs almost always results in an honor loss in the game, it's pretty telling that the game will cut you some slack for murdering a vile racist. Number 5. Coca-Colas, Final Fantasy VII. Final Fantasy VII doles out an especially cruel reward for showing abject disregard not for human life, but that of some animals minding their own damn business. In Mount Coral, you can climb up the wall alongside the railway track and find a bird's nest, which, in addition to hosting 2 adorable chicks, also contains some unspecified treasure. As the player, you're given the choice of either taking the treasure or leaving it, and if you decide to nab it, you'll suddenly be faced with the mama bird, the Coca-Colas. A battle will ensue against the angry bird, though she doesn't put up much of a fight, and most players should be able to cut her down in a matter of seconds. And so, we're back to the treasure, which is then revealed to be 10 Phoenix Downs. While you might have expected the treasure to be a little more fanciful and a bit less practical, you can never have enough life-restoring items in Final Fantasy, right? Number 4. Face McShooty, Borderlands 2. In Borderlands 2, Face McShooty is one of the few psychos who isn't actively baying for your blood, and you can find him hanging out at the Broke Face Bridge in the area of Thousand Cuts. More to the point, all Mr. McShooty does is stand around and loudly beg someone, anyone, to put him out of his misery by shooting him in the face. Hell, it's even a mission in its own right, aptly titled, Shoot This Guy in the Face. If you take the gig and swiftly pop a cap in his dome, he'll shout, "Thank you," as he drops to the ground like an otherwise lifeless sack of you-know-what. As for the reward, first you'll receive 385 XP and over $2,000, and then to go one better, you'll also pop the achievement. Well, that was easy. Considering the entire second it took to kill this suicidal NPC, that's a pretty good return on your time investment. Number 3. Dalia Tal, Splinter Cell Pandora Tomorrow. In Splinter Cell Pandora Tomorrow's Jerusalem mission, you'll eventually meet up with Dalia Tal, an undercover agent of the Israeli secret police Shin Bet, who promises to lead protagonist Sam Fisher to an underground research facility operated by terrorists. Dalia indeed leads Fisher there, at which point Fisher's handler Lambert urges him to kill Dalia before she disappears. Here, players are given the choice of whether to swiftly cap Dalia or not, and if they do so, they'll basically make life a bunch easier for themselves. You see, if you spare Dalia or don't act quickly enough, she'll show up in the final area of the level with a number of tricky snipers who have their designs on you. Conversely, if you kill Dalia, the final area will be patrolled by a few easily dispatched cops, making it far simpler to reach the end in one piece. Yet for many players, they'll likely not find moral justification in killing Dalia, a character who just helped you out big time. And so you'll have to endure a tougher end to the mission when you find out you probably should have taken care of her earlier. Number 2. Little Sisters, BioShock. The big dilemma throughout BioShock is whether players should harvest or save the many little sisters strewn throughout the underwater city of Rapture. Both actions have their ups and downs, yet for those who willingly harvest, that is, kill the little sisters, they'll be rewarded with more Adam, at least in the short term. Because this allows you to upgrade yourself quickly, it makes the earlier stages of the game a lot easier to get through than if you go the explicitly humanitarian route. Saving the little sisters, in comparison, nets you less Adam and makes the earlier levels harder, though you do get gifts for each 3 of them you rescue, and that will allow you to see the game's happier ending. Fans have their individual preferences for which route is best, but if you're looking for a breezy time in BioShock's early game, there's really only one answer here, if you can bring yourself to do it. Number 1. Slumsley, High on Life. Here's one for the real sickos out there. Trust High on Life of all games to push the envelope in terms of who the player is encouraged to kill. But in the very least, it also doles out a neato reward for it. While exploring the game's slum area, you'll eventually be hassled by a small, yellow alien child by the name of Slumsley, enough that impatient players will inevitably end up raising arms against him. However, the game initially prevents you from shooting him, with sentient gun Kenny straight up refusing to kill a kid. However, if you keep trying to fire, Kenny will eventually discharge a round and kill Slumsley, who hits the floor in a puddle of his own blood. Just as Kenny expresses fourth wall breaking surprise that the game actually allowed you to murder a child in cold blood, your true reward pops. An achievement hilariously entitled, "Fallout Doesn't Let You Do This." Classic.